Case in point.
On Tuesday morning, a bread cook began preparing beef stew, a popular special featured every month or so at the diner on the north side. The vegetables received a very quick and incomplete washing, but the stew was cooked to the proper temperature and received its usual share of compliments. When the diner closed, the stock pot with the leftover stew was placed in the walk-in. The next afternoon, the cook noticed the large stock pot of stew had never actually gotten cold, but was still lukewarm. Concerned, he reheated the stew quickly, but did not check the final temperature. Unfortunately, it wasn't hot enough. No less than 23 customers and 2 employees who ate the stew the second night became ill. Yet no one who ate the stew the first night got sick. What was different about the leftover? How could this outbreak have been prevented? What happened?
The Educational Foundation of the National Restaurant Association presents the Serving Safe Food video series. Introduction to Food Safety with Assistant Manager Nick Lucci.
You may be interested in knowing whether that was a true story or not. Well, you bet it's true. Change the names, the time, the place. It happens in this business and it hurts everybody involved. The happy ending is maybe the diner gets to reopen. After an investigation, being closed for 2 weeks, everybody laid off, reputation down the tubes, people sick, including 2 employees. Some happy ending. A better ending would have started with a better beginning. Knowledge of food safety. It's important. Food safety is important to you. It's a big part of being a professional. Hey, do you want to make somebody sick or get sick yourself? Of course you don't. So let's talk about it. I want to let you know why food safety is important, especially why it's important to you. Next, we're going to find out what we're dealing with here, what microorganisms are, and how they make people sick. Up next, we'll get into the flow, the food path from the receiving dock to the table. Then watch out for these things, 8 ways that outbreaks occur, and what you can do about them.
Why food safety is important.
Why? Hey, it's your health, your job, your income. And not just for you, but your coworkers, your customers, the whole reason your place is in business. Following some simple procedures is all we're talking about here. Sure, it takes some extra time and effort, but then you know you're doing things the right way, the safe way. Important? Well, you're a professional, right?
Right.
Right. This is part of being a professional, taking pride in your work and how you do it.
What is foodborne illness?
Foodborne illness. Illness, that's pretty simple. Food, we know what that is. Born. We're not talking about birth here. It's born with an E. This born means carried. So, foodborne illness is an illness that's carried in the food to the people who eat it. Now, what causes the illness? Microorganisms. Microorganisms are microscopic one-celled organisms such as bacteria. Organism, that means it is alive. Microscopic? Smaller than you can see, my friend. You need a microscope. Where are they? Well, just about everywhere. For instance, you carry bacteria in your mouth, your hair, on your hands. That's one of the reasons it's so important to shower daily and wash your hands. And get this, lots of the food you receive already have bacteria in it. Okay, so take something high in protein, like meat or poultry. Leave it at room temperature, and a single bacterium will grow and multiply, and pretty soon, that food would make just about anybody sick. All right, so that's not the scientific explanation, but that's the way it happens. There are some other ways too, and we'll talk about them in a bit. But basically, we're talking about food that is contaminated. Something's in there that shouldn't be, and doesn't have to be. If you know about it before you serve it, well, that's great. You probably prevent a real serious situation. But let's stop microorganisms before they ever get that far. To stop them, we should know what microorganisms need to grow. One of the things bacteria need, just as we do, is food. But let's concentrate on the types of food that are potentially hazardous. Those foods that are most in danger of being contaminated or where bacterial growth is most likely to occur. Basically, they fall into 4 categories. Fresh meat, such as beef or pork. Poultry, such as chicken or turkey. Seafood or fish, and the 4th category includes eggs and dairy products, milk, cheese, foods like that. Bacteria also need time, and they need to spend that time in a certain temperature range, otherwise they can't grow rapidly. Okay, what kind of temperature range? Anywhere between 40 degrees and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or 4.4 to 60 degrees Celsius. This is the temperature danger zone. That's quite a spread. How much time? 4 hours. But that's not as long as you think. That's 4 hours total time, anywhere in that temperature range. Time with the supplier, transportation, receiving, thawing, time for prep. Think about it, it adds up fast.
Understanding the flow of food.
You may not have thought of it this way, but food actually flows through your facility. The flow starts at the loading dock or wherever food is received. Nothing you do can make the food any fresher or higher in quality than it is right here. The idea is to preserve that quality. From receiving, it flows into storage. Most food is going to spend more than 4 hours in storage. So, it better be quality time out of the temperature danger zone. Out of storage it goes and into preparation, the most dangerous time. Why? Because we're working with it in the temperature danger zone and we're exposing it to contamination, either from you or other food or the air. So again, you must limit the time. You must handle it properly. Cooking is next. Cooking, if it's done correctly, takes the food through and beyond the temperature danger zone quickly. And at these higher temperatures, harmful bacteria in the food are killed. But then what do you do with the food until you're ready to serve it? If we've got to hold it, we've got to keep it at or above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Celsius. Next thing, we serve it. Protect your customers. Don't touch the food or any surface that touches food. Most foods can be reused, but only if you cool them quickly to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4.4 degrees Celsius. Cover or wrap them, label and date them, and store them properly. When these items are to be served again, they have to be reheated quickly to 165 degrees Fahrenheit or higher and held at or above 140 degrees Fahrenheit until used or eaten. If it's not used or eaten, there's no third chance. Out it goes. Every one of these stages is important. Here, and here, and here, and the rest of them. Food must be properly handled. Minimize the time spent in the temperature danger zone at every point. A breakdown anywhere can cause big problems, trouble you don't need. All right, now that you understand the flow, let's see where those breakdowns occur. You know, the list.
8 frequent causes of foodborne illness.
1. Failure to cool food properly, far and away the leading cause of foodborne illness. Food is left out in the open air to cool, or stored hot in large quantities in the cooler. Microorganisms multiply and may produce toxins, which are poisons that cannot be eliminated by cooking. 2. The food just doesn't get hot enough to kill all the bacteria. Maybe it never gets out of the temperature danger zone, or it takes too long to get out of there. Result? Microorganisms still in the food could make people sick. It's as simple as that. 3. An infected employee with poor hygiene spreads some bacteria or virus to food. 4. Food is prepared a day or more in advance. If you do this, you have to be even more careful because food is handled more. 5. Raw ingredients are mixed in with cooked or reheated food. Listen, cooking kills bacteria. But if you mix raw food with food that's already been cooked, you may contaminate the cooked food. Never mix raw with cooked. 6. Food is left in the temperature danger zone too long. We've been talking about this. Minimize the time food spends between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 4.4 to 60 degrees Celsius. 7. Food that has been cooled is not reheated to the proper temperature, one that's high enough to kill bacteria. Reheat all foods to 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 73.9 degrees Celsius. 8. Cross-contamination. Remember I said some foods come into your restaurant already containing bacteria? When the food is cooked, the bacteria are killed, right? No problem. But what if some of them are left on a cutting board or a knife, and then we go to prepare the fresh lettuce? No cooking there. The contamination is crossed from the raw chicken by way of the cutting board to the lettuce. Cross-contamination. Big trouble. There are some other hazards to food, too. There are chemical hazards like cleansers and sanitizers. These can get into food if they're not stored properly. They don't belong anywhere near food. And finally, there are physical hazards, such as glass chips or metal fragments which are not supposed to be part of the food. Your jewelry or hair can be a physical hazard too. Take your jewelry off and leave it behind. Don't take anything onto the job that you don't need. And the hair? Restrain it. All right, let's go back to our case in point and go over what we've learned about food safety and the flow of food.
Beef stew, prepared with poorly washed vegetables, was served the first night without making anyone sick. Cooled in the walk-in overnight, the leftover stew never got below 75 degrees Fahrenheit. The stew was quickly recooked, but no temperature checks were made. It was held at 140 degrees. 25 people became ill from eating it the second night.
The answer to a case in point.
We asked what happened. Well, foodborne illness happened. Since the vegetables were poorly washed, the bacteria went into the stew. The large stockpot of stew was put into the walk-in instead of being divided into shallow pans. And the bacteria grew. Then, when the stew was reheated, it did not reach a temperature that would kill the bacteria, and people got sick. And that goes right to the point we've been making. You have to be careful at each step. Beware of the flow of food in your operation. Don't do anything to temperature abuse or contaminate the food while it's in your control. That's what I mean by professional. Doing your part to protect the safety of your customers, your co-workers, and yourself. Take care.